Welcome, everybody out there in podcast land. Welcome to this test pilot podcast, I guess you can say, with one of you've known him. You listen to his podcast, or you better listen to his podcast, the Mind of Dick podcast. Welcome to this show, Richard Guyton. How you doing, buddy?
What's up? What's up, dude? I'm really excited about this. It's something we've been talking about for a while. Do a podcast together. I'm super excited about this, bro. It's gonna be great.
Yeah, I hope you guys enjoy this. This is something that Richard and I, like he said, talked about for a while and kind of just figuring out what we wanted to do. And I've talked about this in my last podcast, last few of them, just trying to figure out what we can bring to this table that will intrigue people in the millions of podcasts that are out there. And one thing that him and I are super passionate about is music. And I know with him, once we start going, it's going to be like, it's just going to flow really well because we just have this eclectic amount of category of music in our head that we can just spew off shit from either personal experience or fact, or I may spew out something dumb and he's going to go, nah, that's not going to rock. So,
Well, we both have a passion for music. I mean, with being in bands and just like listening to music in general since we were, super young. I mean, music's always been a part of my life from, my dad listening to like CCR and Doobie Brothers and stuff and just listening to that stuff to just, growing up with my mom screaming in the car to, I don't know, like the 80s stuff. It's just always been a passion of mine. Music's just been a part of my life forever. I have all this useless knowledge in my head and it's all I really think about is just like going down rabbit holes, like finding out about this band or that band or it's for years, it's all I've done. So I know that you do the same thing. So it's going to be great, man. We got a lot of useless knowledge and we're going to put its use on this podcast.
yeah. And one of the biggest things that we did want to kind of like theme around, just instead of just bringing in any type of like, this is my favorite artist and this, I'm going to tell you why. No, we kind of wanted to bring, bring something like interesting to the table. And,
right.
Do you want to tell them about that?
What about like the segments we're going to do, or what do you mean?
I mean, we had so many different things to talk about. I mean, we had so many different like ideas, but I think one of the biggest ones, which makes it super interesting for us to do like our homework, which made it interesting for me because we both have all this useless knowledge right now, but I got to go and do some actual research like I never did before in school. And it just made me so excited to do this. And the segment we're going to try to base this podcast around is on this day in history.
Right. I did a little bit of research. I don't think I did as much as you did, but it's going to be super interesting. I mean, I love to go and look at like what actually happened on this day. There's a lot of different things, a lot of different cool things that were going on this day. So, I think that let's get into it. Let's see what did you come up with for this day in history?
I mean, being like a rock, metal, pop, fanatic and stuff, I really kind of got lost in this particular on this day in, oh my God, my eyes are terrible. September 13th on this day. This is Friday the 13th, everybody.
Friday the 13th. Yeah.
This was actually Saturday, September 13th, 1996, where Tupac Shakur actually died from gunshot wounds from a Las Vegas Mike Tyson's bout. So I was a big Tupac fan growing up, not like a loyal fan where I knew all the lyrics, but if you're any bit of a hip hop fan at all, you recognize Tupac's music almost instantly.
Dude, I love fucking Tupac. Tupac is amazing.
But probably what most people don't know is that gangster rap wasn't always Tupac's music. And that was like blowing me away when I went down the rabbit hole of all his music, going back to, all right, everybody, I had bullet points for this. I don't want to go on a tangent, but this was like super fucking interesting to me. And I'm trying not to cuss, but I was like blown away by how quickly things kind of like escalated in Tupac's life.
I totally know where you're going with this too. But yeah, go.
So he was born with his real name is Lassane Parrish, Crooks, which is kind of like crazy to come up with like Tupac Shakur, you know, like Crooks, you have like a pretty badass last name in itself.
Yeah, yeah.
So yeah, that was his real name. He was born in 71. He died at 25 years old. I mean, like,
Jeez.
just think about the greats that we can even talk about in history if we just hit the day properly. Like, look how many of the greats died by 27. It's like,
Yeah.
I mean, go down the list. You got Kurt Cobain, you have River Phoenix, you have
Hendrix,
Hendrix, you have
Janis
Janis
Joplin,
Joplin. Oh my gosh! I mean, even
yeah,
the Doors guy. I
Jimmy,
mean,
Jim Morrison, yeah,
Jim Morrison. I mean, oh my goodness. I mean, everybody probably like in podcast land, some of you are like, are you serious? I'm like, yeah, 27
yeah,
years old. It just,
27.
it was like the Mount Rushmore of like iconic, legendary artists that died before 27. It's just mind blowing. And even Notorious B.I.G., same thing. So, okay. So I was going down. So he died on this day, September 13th. So, like I said before, he died from those gunshot wounds from a Mike Tyson's bout that he went and saw. So I'm a big Mike Tyson's fan. So I went and like kind of looked in the history of him. It was the Mike Tyson versus Bruce Seldon fight. So the crazy thing about this is after Mike Tyson was released from prison for rape, he went on a 3-fight terror spree. He was just on a menace. He was just like going. He was making up for all that time. So he goes and he captures the WBC heavyweight championship from Frank Bruno. This is where it gets incredibly crazy because everybody knows at one point you've seen Mike Tyson bite the ear of Evander Holyfield. Everybody
Yeah,
has
yeah.
seen it. It's an iconic, monumental meltdown of a moment for Mike Tyson in his life. So he was supposed to fight Lennox Lewis. So Lennox Lewis was supposed to be in line to fight Mike Tyson for the WBC. Mike Tyson pays $4 million to give, he gives $4 million to Lennox Lewis and says, hey, let me fight this next guy. I want to fight he ended up fighting Bruce Seldon. This is where it was. So he ended up fighting Bruce Seldon. He pays Lennox Lewis $4 million. Give me a pass. I'm going to fight this guy to get this championship, and then I'll come back and fight you. He gives him $4 million. He vacates the belt. He's like, I'm not fighting this guy. Fights Bruce Seldon, which is in history as the fastest knockout in history at 1 minute and 49 seconds in the first round. I mean, I
He's
know
an animal, bro. Tyson
dude,
is an animal.
my dad would lose his ever loving mind every time a Tyson pay-per-view came around because he goes, I don't want to spend $70 on this because in the early 90s, $60 to $70 was a lot
Oh yeah,
of money
oh, yeah.
for a pay-per-view. Everybody knows that. Even now, like when we're talking about $80, $90, I'm like, we're watching these guys, like watching the sweat beat off their forehead. I'm like, we're watching clarity beyond belief. And it's only gone up like, like maybe 20% since the 90s. So,
Yeah, yeah.
but anywho, so he knocks this guy out. There is a big scuffle. Let's get back into the Tupac thing because I was so heavily enriched with Tyson. I can even go back to that if you'd like me to, but actually I'll just end it real quick. So he beats Seldon. He ends up going and fighting Evander Holyfield, and then you all know what happened then. He ends up just losing his ever-loving mind, bites his ear twice, fights Lennox Lewis, gets his ass kicked by Lennox Lewis. He ends up going back and fighting Lennox Lewis. So at one point, like Mike Tyson just hit the lowest of low when it came down to like top tier boxers. And everybody knows what happened then. You know, then he's gone on to his ventures in all different types of like cartoons, other businesses, and he seems like a really humbled individual now. But if you really go back, even before like the rape allegations, he was the youngest heavyweight champion of all time. And I don't want this to be like a Mike Tyson's thing, but it would, you know, being a sports fan, it's like this guy went through a lot of crap that people really don't recognize. They just see the humbled Mike Tyson right now. They see like the hangover Mike Tyson. I saw like the 30 seconds. This guy is going to knock your head right off your shoulders guy. Like the most
I remember
vicious,
that.
the most vicious
Yeah.
individual in the world. Even he struck so much fear into people that even now at his age, at like close to 60 years old, we still fear a punch from Mike Tyson. How many
Oh, yeah.
how many 60-year-olds in this world do you fear a punch from? Not a lot of people.
No, no.
So, but Mike
No,
Tyson,
you see him in the 80s though. You see him like when he was just at his prime, like he was ferocious, dude. Like he just came out and I mean, I'm surprised these guys can just run away. Like fuck that. Like I'm not. He was just insane, bro. But like my biggest thing with Mike Tyson was, I mean, I grew up playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out.
oh,
And I don't know if you remember that, dude. And I remember the first time that's what I always like when I think of Mike Tyson. I remember I was there with a bunch of friends and we were playing Mike Tyson's Punch Out. And when I beat Mike Tyson for the first time, like I was fighting Mike Tyson and I was literally scared. Like if I was really fucking fighting Mike Tyson, I was so fucking scared, like trying to beat this guy. And I finally beat him after months and months of playing this damn game. And it was like, as a kid, it was one of the best moments of my life. But I beat Mike Tyson. That was my Mike Tyson memory.
I don't
The dude
remember.
was ferocious.
I don't remember any video game that gave you a one-hit knockout like Mike Tyson did. And when he did that,
Yeah.
you were like, "What just happened?"
Yeah. Oh, yeah. He hits you, you're done. Yeah. Yeah. So for some reason, like we played and played and played. We couldn't figure out. We finally figured out the trick and we beat him. And I was the first one out of all my friends. And I think I had like 4 or 5 friends around. And, I don't know how old I was. It's, 8 years old, 9 years old. But I beat Mike Tyson for the first time. I was the first one of my friends to do it. And, I was a legend at the time because everybody was trying to beat Mike Tyson. But anyway, I love Tyson. I mean, I look at videos of him now and I'm like, geez, he was just insane. He was just and it was just crazy how good he was. He was an animal, bro. Like literally just came out like a whirlwind, like fucking it was nuts, dude.
The funny thing about that, and this is useless knowledge. That might even just be like this podcast name, just useless knowledge.
It's this knowledge podcast.
Right. On this day
that's so much of it.
with useless knowledge. The funny thing about that Nintendo deal with Mike Tyson, he got $45 million for that deal. And they sold, it was like one of the highest sold cartridge ever. And he didn't get like a percentage. He got 45,000 for that whole deal for his replica, for his resemblance and all that stuff. That's an insane deal compared to what he was doing at the very end of it, like even the middle of his career before he went to prison. Like he was making millions of dollars. It was absurd.
Yeah, yeah.
So everybody, please go look at Mike Tyson. But check this out: Tupac Shakur. This you guys probably thought with his West Coast upbringing, or you thought he was all West Coast upbringing. No, this guy was born in New York. And he ends up moving to Baltimore, then moves to San Francisco in 88. So between the age or the year of 71 and 88, so that's 17 years, he's almost an adult before he hits California to get that West Coast feel. Then the trippy part about this, what really kind of like blew me away, but when he started representing West Coast was only 3 years later when he dropped his first album. In 91, he dropped his first album called Tupacalypse Now. It was like really like, if you knew hip hop back in the early 90s, it's very upbeat. It's not like really slow jammy. It's very like like they really had a lot of
great
fat.
description.
So I hate that. I wish I can give you an example right now. Cause it's really like even TLC. Like if you heard TLC's early music, it's very upbeat music. It's not like the Waterfalls and Scrub music they're known for. Yeah. So you know what? I'm gonna do it. I don't care. Because I can't describe it. It's really hard to describe because it's something that people aren't used to hearing from Tupac at all. Mm-hmm. Tupac now. Okay. Look at me go. I just found all this.
Trying to see what songs are on that album. Oh, okay.
Suddenly I see some niggas that I don't like.
Okay, well this is like this is not the one I was talking about. So all right. Sorry, y'all. That's my first fail. This is why this is the test pilot. Damn it. What was the one I was talking about? The one he had. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's what it was called. Maybe it's because I didn't want to bring it up because the name is called Strictly for the N words. So it's it's kind of a. I need to find it. Oh, here it is. Okay, here's my example. Not what. Okay, that was a commercial.
Game.
Once you guys hear it, you guys will completely understand what I'm talking about. Oh my gosh, that's not it.
He didn't do enough research.
I did. But the first song I heard was, yeah, oh my gosh. I feel like such an asshole right now.
Can you please explain the meaning behind your
That's right. Your description of it was perfect.
Yeah. There's the first couple songs I heard from this album, and it's just like really upbeat stuff. So I'm really sorry that I wasted your time about that. But the really crazy thing is when you start hearing his albums like kind of progress into like more of a slower beat, more of like the R&B you hear later in his career. It was on his third album. That one, Me Against the World. That was the one that had like Dear Mama, So Many Tears. Everybody knows that's one of the most iconic albums that really put him into a different level of stardom, because ultimately with his next album, which ended up being put on Death Row, where it came to be the gangster rap that he was known for, which he later died for, this guy sold like over 100 million albums worldwide. And this is back in a day where you had to buy CDs and cassettes, and that was all you had. I mean, this whole streaming platform we have now, we are in such a crazy, world right now where we have such easy accessibility to things where we can just double tap our phone and pay for something and then ship to our house. But back then, if you wanted to be one of the first or buy an album, you had to go to a record store and do this. So imagine 100 million albums, and he's probably still climbing right now.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, people are still just discovering, how good like Tupac actually was. I mean, he was the way his cadence was in his raps is followed by a lot of the guys after him. He was a innovator and all that. And, I don't care if he was East Coast, West Coast, whatever. Like, he was just, his music and his message was what was important.
And
Even though he had like the thug life and all that shit, but there's stories that I've heard that he actually didn't live that thug life. That, you know what I mean? He was, like you said, he kind of had like different upbringing than what he portrayed, but it was his gangster rap was innovative, and it basically just influenced a lot of different rappers. He was just really good at his craft. He was a poet,
Yeah, so you segued perfect into what his next album was, because his first three albums were signed with Interscope. He ended up not signing with them and went to, Death Row Records, where
Death Row, of course,
with Suge Knight.
Good old Suge, yeah.
Suge Knight, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre, which is an iconic. Yeah. I mean, the music they dropped on Death Row was like, you didn't want to bump that in certain areas. That's how like hard it was. It wasn't like NWA where it's like, you can't play that because it's like brutal. It's like, that's like really fucking crazy lyrics these guys are saying. I think Death Row, the interesting about Death Row and Tupac when he started writing with them and Dre, it wasn't about, at least with Tupac's music, it wasn't about the chorus. It was all about his lyrics. His lyrics were all Tupac's music, and if you had a good chorus from Tupac, the song it was just the cherry on top. Which most music now, like most musicians have really great verses and stuff, but their chorus is like, ooh, that's rough. It's like we couldn't have thought of anything else right there, please. So he ends up coming out with All Eyes on Me on Death Row, which everybody knows, like, California Love with Dr. Dre, How Do You Want It with Casey and JoJo. Ooh, if you don't know anything about Casey and JoJo, y'all, if you guys don't want to make babies, don't listen to Casey and JoJo. But if you do, go listen to Casey and JoJo.
That's baby making music.
That's baby making music. One of the great, America's Most Wanted was Snoop Dogg, but I think one of the biggest songs on here that I really enjoyed was I Ain't Mad at Ya. And it's about his song. Yeah. It's about his buddy that died and stuff. And it's like the lyrics in that, like I get goosebumps thinking about it. I wish I can play, but we'll definitely be the first and last time you'll hear from us doing this shit. So
let's not get canceled this early.
Yeah. But the crazy thing too is that out of all these albums, he didn't develop a East Coast, West Coast beef until he signed with Death Row. And we all know what happened with that. And, the allegations are still out there that it was, P. Diddy that did the hit on them. I mean, we still don't know to this day who really did it. But with this whole crazy thing with P. Diddy right now, like, who knows? Like, the cat may be out of the bag sooner than we know. Within the next 2 years, we might find out a whole bunch of crap dropping.
Right.
Uh-oh, wife got me a coffee. I'm going to be zinging. Oh, shit. Thanks, love.
That's a good wife.
Yeah. Dutch Bros, sorry, Starbucks. I know we're not going to get endorsed by you because Dutch Bros is crushing.
Oh, yeah. I hate Starbucks. Dude. I'd rather have Dutch Bros all day.
And you know what? It's mostly the bubbly personalities that they have on a consistent basis that Starbucks lost after the first year when they're like, this is a lot of fucking people to serve.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Starbucks is horrible. I'd rather all day I just make my shit at home. I like it better when I make like a nice coffee or fucking coffee at home. It's fucking way better than Starbucks, but Dutch Bros is killer, bro.
Yes, sir. Well, that was my today in history, Mr. Tupac Shakur.
I got some stuff to add to it a little bit.
Please.
Guess what else happened this day in history that's kind of related? Biggie released an album on this day.
Oh, really?
Did you know that? Yeah. So, yeah, Biggie released the Ready to Die album on this day.
No shit.
Yeah, bro. Isn't that crazy?
That is, and now the one that has hypnotized me. That was like his big one. I'm going back to Cali. Oh my God.
Yeah, it was released on this day, bro. Like, I saw that and I was like, and then you said what you're going to talk about. I was like, holy shit. Yeah, hell yeah, dude.
Wow.
But, yeah,
see, it's mind games, people. It's mind games everywhere. Oh my gosh.
Right. Yeah. So, one theory that I don't know if you've heard about, like just the whole like gangsta hip hop shit that came out in the 90s. I heard that. So, the war on drugs in the 70s and like stuff like that. Like they made weed illegal so they could arrest more people. I think that in the 90s they came out with all this gangster rap. And I don't know if you've heard this, that they said they want to promote all this gangster rap to make people think that this is okay. So again, they could arrest more people. And this is a conspiracy theory that I've, subscribed to for a while. They made it super, super popular, stuff like that. And I don't know, I've seen things where like Tupac, Biggie, this was all like, they did this on purpose just to promote like a big beef so that they could sell more records and they could make people think that this is okay, and then they can arrest more people. I don't know. What is your take on that?
I guess I'm trying to understand, like, the war on drug was the reason why, like, who was trying to promote what to incite the East and West thing? I'm just trying to understand.
So you can say whoever it is, you can say the government, you can say whatever it is, the CIA, the government, whatever. It's a conspiracy theory. So I'm stupid when it comes to these. But I just heard this, and I don't know if you had heard it, that, they started the war on drugs. They made weed illegal, right, in the 70s to.
Is this just to arrest more people?
Just to arrest more people, to get into like the spots where everybody's smoking weed so they can arrest more people because prisons are for profit. Right.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So
that
then
makes
they moved
more
it
sense.
to the 90s. Yeah. So they can arrest more people so the prisons can make more money. Right. But then what it turned into in the 90s was gangster rap. So they made it seem like they glorified it with gangster rap so that they could arrest more people, basically. So I don't know if you've heard anything about that. What do you think about that?
I haven't heard anything about that, but being the age that I am and growing up where we grew up, I was really like
Yeah.
kind of oblivious to a lot of things because my parents weren't political and they kind of just stayed to themselves, it stayed the course
Right.
of just survival. But being the age that I am now, nothing on this world or on this planet is done without some sort of reasoning. So the government has the most influence in this country. People don't want to admit it. This country does fucked up things to its own people. We don't.
Yeah.
It's just really. It's a fact. It's really sucks. But if you look at it in a broader perspective, we get fucked less than most other people around the world. So
That's true. Yeah. But I just feel everything's like a conspiracy when it comes to stuff like that. But regardless, I started getting into that kind of stuff when I really shouldn't have. And, I started I remember I got a NWA tape, and a buddy of mine gave it to me when I was in like middle school. And I was like, I'm not supposed to listen to this. And then I got into like punk rock and stuff like that. And, I'm listening to Dre and Tupac and Biggie and all that. And I'm like hiding it. Right. So my cool, like punk rock friends didn't know I listened to hip hop, but like, that was my first real love was rap. Hip hop was my first love, my music love. I don't know if you knew that about me, but everybody thinks it's like, oh, this guy was into punk, but I was heavily into like rap, and especially like that gangster rap from the 90s. Public Enemy was one of my favorites. Rap groups like that. And I hid it from other people. Like, you're not supposed to listen to it. Oh, let me hold on. Let me throw on this Bad Religion tape real quick. You didn't hear me listening to rap. I was just trying to hear what it was, but I was totally into it. And I can admit that now because I fucking love it. But back then it was kind of something I kept on the DL. So
yeah, you kind of had to because people would judge you to the fact like, oh, fuck the police. You don't like the police? It's like,
Yeah,
no. I'm
exactly.
like, no, it's just like the music. I mean, can't we just vibe?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, you're vibing to hatred towards the police? It's like, oh my good Lord. The crazy thing, Nirvana came out with a song called Rape Me, and I still bob my head to that song. I mean, come on.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I don't know. It was just that's why I love, when you're talking about like Tupac, stuff like that, because I just really was always like loving Tupac back then. But so that's a good one.
The biggest thing after my biggest take out of this whole entire like research, and it may not seem like I did a lot on this, but ultimately after all this, I was like, what would hip hop be right now if both those individuals were still here?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I mean,
well, still, you look at Dre's still around, and he's doing things, but I mean, Eminem's been around for a while and he's, whatever he's doing. So who knows if they would have still been in the game or just looked at as, icons and still around hanging out,
I don't know if you would get like these Tekashi 6ix9ines and all these like kind of mumble rappers if if like Tupac and Biggie were like, what the hell are you doing? No. I mean, that's like kind of how I look at those two guys in that particular genre. I mean, everybody else can kind of just do whatever the hell they want in any other category, but rap,
right.
I think if those two were around, I think rap would just be on a whole different level. Like what Kendrick Lamar and Drake did for the community with their little beef was something that we hadn't seen since the Tupac and Biggie era. It was like, holy shit, this is nuts. And the whole community like banded. They took sides, which was scary,
Right.
So the good thing, it wasn't like to the point where people wanted to kill one another. It was just like, oh my God, these guys are slanging blows with lyrics back and forth. This is crazy.
Oh yeah, exactly.
So
right on. Okay, so my turn. Mine's not as gangster as yours. So this day so mine kind of it triggered something. It's not actually what happened this day in history, but it kind of triggered something else that I wanted to talk about. But this day in history, one of the greatest songs I think ever written was released in 1997 by Elton John. It's "Candle in the Wind." Elton John is on my top 10 list that we'll probably discuss later. But this song was about Princess Diana. And what triggered that is the conspiracies around Princess Diana. I don't know if you've heard anything about that.
Oh yeah.
About her death. And
but most people
let's
might
talk
not.
about- but-
if you want to kind of
Right.
elaborate on that.
Right, yeah. So basically he wrote the song in about, I think he wrote it in a couple days and released it a couple weeks after her death. He was really close with Princess Diana. I mean, Elton John's a legend, and I just love that song. It's one of the most beautiful songs ever written. And it also, I mean, I guess I can say it inspired another song. It was 5,000 times better than that song. It was 5,000 Candles in the Wind. I don't know if you've ever heard that by the band Mousetrap. Okay, I'm joking. It's from Parks and Rec. It's written by Andy Dwyer. He's on my top 10 list. But anyway,
Oh jeez.
so, yeah. But anyway, it's so that song was written by Elton John in a couple days. He said he almost had it written in a couple days, but she got in a car accident. Okay, and there's all these different theories about the car accident. They say like the driver was drunk. Well, the driver was from the hotel, basically in Paris. This happened in Paris. And if you didn't know about her, she had divorced, who's now King Philip. He was Prince Philip at the time. She had divorced him. There's infidelity. She was never really happy in the marriage. It was basically an arranged marriage from the time she was born because her family was really close with the royal family. So she was never happy in the marriage. She was super depressed. She was bulimic. She cut herself. There was all these different things. And then finally they divorced. And it was a super big scandal. And, she was so loved by all the people over there. And even people here loved her, And she ended up divorcing Prince Philip finally. And then she found this guy, and he was an Egyptian Muslim. And his name was Dodi Fayed, I think is how you say it. And she was truly in love with this guy. You could tell they were in love. His family had money, stuff like that. They were kind of, royalty in Egypt, but he was an Egyptian. And he was in the car with her when she died. And there was rumors that she was pregnant with his child. It was never really confirmed because they didn't really release like the autopsy or anything like that. I guess they had embalmed her before they could really release any information. It was just all this conspiracy about what was going on, but there was rumors that she was pregnant with this child. And so his father, Fayed's father, said that they were murdered because the royal family did not want to have him as a stepfather to the future king, right? So there's Harry and there's William, and Harry is he's second now. At the time, he was third in line for the throne. They did not want to have an Egyptian Muslim as the stepfather, and they also did not want her to have any, or basically them to have like a step brother or sister, or half brother or sister that was an Egyptian Muslim. And that was one of the theories. And I just think that the whole thing with her death is there's so much shady stuff going on. She had said numerous times that there was something going to happen. They didn't like her because she didn't play by the rules, right? Because she didn't just go out and do whatever they wanted. And so the royal family didn't like her. And there's ties, with the royal family to, MI6, that they hired MI6 to basically get rid of her. And so it's weird that such a beautiful song made me think of all this, but that was, it's always kind of intrigued me, like this whole conspiracy around her death, because she was, basically, I remember like when I was a kid, like not understanding why everybody loved her. She's in England. Why does everybody love her? I remember the name and all that, but it's just a conspiracy around her death. But on this day in history, Elton John wrote that song to honor his friend, and I think it's still one of the most beautiful songs that I've ever heard.
Wow. Dude, That's fucking crazy.
It's crazy, right? Like you don't really think about like, oh, she passed away. You know, there's so much behind it and so many
Well,
things going on before
I
her
didn't even
death.
know that song was about her, to be quite honest with you.
Oh yeah, yeah. It was played at her funeral, I want to say. But yeah, Elton John wrote that song about her, and he said it just came to him after her death, and I want to say he said he wrote it in like a day, and it's such a great song.
Everybody listen to what Richard said. Like that royal family said no mixed breeding.
Right,
That's
right.
so crazy, because if any of this conspiracy is any bit true, I mean, that's so nuts. I mean,
Yeah.
do you expect anything different? I mean, at this point, no. But just look at that royal family. Like
Yeah.
they have a lineage of like they should have been mixing this entire time, you know.
Yeah.
And you can go back 200 plus years ago where, you know, the incestual, you know, family were just mixing with each other, and like they develop like hunchbacks and like long droopy faces and shit like that. Dude, it's crazy, you know. And you look at
Yep.
King Charles now, it's like, oh man, he has sausage fingers because of alcoholism. He has a big old
Yeah.
droopy face because of his
Yeah.
his whole family's bad decisions. So
Right, exactly. And there's still the conspiracy with what is it? Is it Harry that married an American movie star, and they didn't want them to get married, and they were, you know, they've been fighting it since day one, and she's got to go through all this crap, and it's like, you know, they're not about like, oh, who are you in love with? They're about like, what's going to make us look good, you know, what's going to make our lineage look good, and
the crazy thing
they,
is
they
that
have no power anyway.
your kids were raised in an era that you weren't raised in. So
Yeah.
culturally,
Yeah.
they're two different type of people.
Yeah, yeah.
And you know,
It's
bringing
all-
up the beauty of Candle in the Wind. Most people don't realize is some of the greatest songs in the world if you're not really paying attention to the lyrics, which I'm not the person that's a lyrical person. I'm more of like just I get into the music. Which my wife hates me about. She's like, "You don't listen to the lyrics?" I'm like, "No." I'm like, first, I don't want to listen to Sabrina Carpenter. You know, I want to hear what the musicians are bringing out to the table sometimes. So, but like Frank Sinatra, possibly one of the greatest musicians of all time, possibly the most
yeah.
depressing fucking musician of all time as well. It's really sad. All his music is about heartbreak, you know, him and like alcoholism, women leaving him, you know, everything. And then it's like, ding, you know, just very upbeat shit. It's like, yeah, all that type of stuff. And he's just like goes home and just wallows in self-pity. You know, it's crazy.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, it's like, oh, she left me, and I hate that bitch. Yeah. So
But
I
like
get it,
Lane
yeah.
Staley, or like I think that's how you know,
Staley, yeah.
Staley, you know, from Alice in Chains. I mean, it
Yeah.
kind of like fit the profile. You know what I mean? Kurt Cobain kind of fit the profile of Nirvana's music. You know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Frank Sinatra, I was like, that's very interesting. That one caught me off guard, big time.
Yeah. Yeah. For real.
So yeah, that's you know, I have it on my YouTube right now, and I wish I can play it, but like I said, we'd be just shut down. I'm gonna listen to it
Yeah.
later, just in kind of like, you know, I'm looking at the cover of this YouTube picture. I'm like, man, I'm gonna find like some Princess Diana footage with that song behind it, because I guarantee you somebody has done that. And
Yeah.
I'm also gonna do like the Pink Floyd Wizard of Oz thing, because I've never done that, and people say, "Oh,
I heard about that.
dude, I heard that is like one of the craziest things to watch."
Yeah.
If you sync it properly. I heard it's like a bitch to sync up, but I'm sure it's
yeah,
on
I
YouTube
bet.
as well. But
Yeah, but I heard that shit. That's crazy.
dude, like the music that was written back in the 70s, I don't think this generation quite understands like what that type of era was. I mean, there was a huge psychedelic era where people were just experimenting with just the phenomenon of what our brains could not tap into on a normal basis, and bringing it to this hippie era, and they come up with Dark Side of the Moon. And I am not a Pink Floyd fan, and we're gonna kind of like segue into other things before this podcast is over with, and I'll kind of like justify that, you know, at that point. But what music was written back then, we will never be able to rewrite ever again. Never, because culturally we can't accept what was done to achieve that shit.
Right.
There's a lot of benders. There's a lot of like crazy parties, crazy this and that. Everything that people can't do now in a normal studio. They think I'm just too professional to go through all this because I'm a professional musician. No. These guys were just doing cocaine for 8 days straight, and they wrote one of the greatest albums of all time. You know? So there's just like a
cocaine's
different
hell of a
level.
drug.
Yeah, it's a level of, it's just a different level. So,
Yeah.
but one to kind of like brighten up things, on this day in September of 1965, the roast master Jeff Ross was born. And
What?
yes, sir. I just watched him. I mean, I'm sure I hope everybody watched the roast of Tom Brady, because it was the greatest roast possibly of all time. It brought back old school comedy to a point where it was like, oh my gosh, like people are digging deep into these people, like really rough. And it was like old school comedy. And Jeff Ross is obviously there as the roast master, just tearing into everybody. So I was watching that. Then I saw a clip of him when he was roasting prisoners. And it's like, this guy's going to get fucking stabbed in here. It's like, oh my God. And he's just so nonchalantly like, hey, you fat fuck. No one wants to talk to you, you prisoner. Did you rob a bakery? I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. So what that guy has been able to achieve with all of his comedic experience and just comfortability around people, just to say, I can say whatever I want to you and you won't say anything back to me because you know I'm the roast master and I'm just making fun, is another level of like 8-day cocaine bender. You know what I mean? So
Well, people need to not be so offended, you know.
and I think
That's what I love
people
about
are
the roast is like people are offended so easily, and at the roast they're just like, hey, I'm going to talk all this shit about you and I don't give a shit.
Yeah.
You know, and it's like stupid. It's like, stop being so offended.
I think
You know?
you're starting to see a change. I think people are starting to like lighten up about things. And with all the comedy things that are dropping, like that roast, I mean, please people, if you have not seen it, I believe it's on Netflix right now. It brings you back to like the Richard Pryor, the Eddie Murphy, Delirious, all that type of like old school raunchy comedy. I was like, ooh, this is in 2024. Holy shit, where am I at?
Yeah, things are getting better. I think people were so offended and people are getting canceled for like the stupidest shit. It's like now people are starting to lighten up, and I think we're going back to that era of like the 70s and 80s where you could say all that, you could talk shit about people and people aren't going to get offended. They're just going to laugh and say, hey, it's a joke, you know.
Yeah,
And,
so-
and I love that.
Yeah. So if any of your favorite artists or any of your favorite anything has been canceled in the last 4 years, just know in the next 2 or 3 years, they're probably going to pop and it's going to blow your mind away. Like I'm ready for Panic at the Disco to drop in the next 2 years. Like we're going on tour and I'm going to bust a cherry, dude, and just spend all my money on front row seats.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's one of my like on this day in history, because I think I want to give honor to like the greats that were born on these specific days that we talk about. And this guy is just, he brings so much joy to everybody. I mean, that's the one person that I can bring to the table for you guys. Like, go look up Jeff Ross and you can thank us later.
I totally agree, 100%. Sweet. So let's move on to the next thing I wanted to talk about. In recent news, Linkin Park has a new singer.
Oh, you're in for it now, buddy.
I know. So, and this is something we started to talk about. It's something that I really wanted to talk about. So, a lot of bands have done this, right? Have replaced their singer with this new Linkin Park singer. I'm getting I guess I'm getting that you're not a fan.
I'm just gonna get your opinion first, and then
Okay,
I'll go from
I'll
there.
give you my opinion. Okay, so my opinion, and I'll start with Linkin Park, and then we can talk about other bands that have done it. But their music is so good. They're one of the best bands that have ever done it. And to not be able to hear those songs live, for people to not be able to hear those songs live again, and that's just a tragedy, you know. And you don't want to like have just anybody do it, and like let's say guest singers do it, and they go on to like to be able to hear like these videos I'm seeing of this recent one in LA. it's just to hear these songs live again, because people are just so into it. If I was there and just into it, I'd just be loving it. So for a band to come back that's as big as Linkin Park, with a singer who's so good, she is so good. It's not Chester. It's never going to be Chester. You're never going to get to that level, right? But to be able to play those songs again live for people to experience that, I think is amazing. I think they made the right choice with her. She's so fucking good. She's just a really good singer. And I think it was a good move. You can't change the name. You can't do any of that because nobody's going to care. You try to change the name, nobody's going to care. You got to come back as Linkin Park with a new singer and tribute the legend of Chester Bennington. So that's my take on it. I think it's so good, and I love every bit of it. What do you think?
Okay, so I did.
My walls are closing in.
So this is recent.
So insecure. Crawling in my skin. These wounds, they will not heal.
One thing I want to point out, and this is something that goes back to the early 2000s when I was in my group, and musicianship was very key in our group. Linkin Park is probably one of the most solid, well-recorded bands ever in music history. Their music is spot on. There is no, even production-wise, if you listen to their Hybrid Theory album, there is no, everything is just perfectly leveled. Everything from all there's I think there's like 6 people in this group, I believe, like 5 or 6. Everything's perfect level, and that's something even in their live that I'm listening to now is still key. Now, when it comes down to the singer, we all know not many replacements can be a replacement for a legend. You know, Chester will never be replaced.
Right.
I do really agree that people that were Linkin Park fans that didn't get to see them perform, and even the new age and the new generation that's listening to them now, are thankful that they get to see this. But with billions of people in the world, you didn't have another option. And I believe it's because she doesn't have the same raspy range that Chester did. And I think with Linkin Park, I mean, this is really hard to say because I saw a tribute band called Hybrid Theory, and the singer sounds exactly like Chester. And it's like, why didn't you just hire him and we could have just all busted cherries together?
Because you don't want to have a sound-alike. That's the thing. You don't want to have someone just pretending to be Chester. Then you end up with Journey, you know, where they just found a guy on YouTube that sounded exactly like him, and they were like, okay,
Take it back.
You don't want to sound alike.
Take it back. Take it all back. This is the test and last pilot we do together. This guy's out of his fucking mind, people.
you have Journey, who the guy is great. Okay, the guy is great. The singer for Journey, he is good. I mean, I saw him live too, and then he was great. But he's just a sound-alike. That's all he is, and he's a good performer, stuff like that. But they found a guy on YouTube that was a sound-alike, and they put him in. So that's what you end up with. If you just hire somebody that's a sound-alike, you want someone different. That's my opinion. You don't want someone to sound exactly like the person. Otherwise, it's karaoke. You're just trying to sound like the original singer. You want someone that is similar, that's a good singer, that can sing the songs. And that's what I think they got with Emily Armstrong, is she can sing the songs well, and she's got a good scream. She's just not, everybody's trying to compare it to Chester. So you want someone to sound just like Chester. She sings in a different register than Chester. She doesn't have the same voice as Chester. She's not going to sing the songs the same way. You know, I don't agree that you need someone to sound exactly like the singer. That's not what we want. But moving on to another level.
The blueprint was based around that voice, though.
But he's not with us anymore. That's the thing. You can't do that anymore. You know. So that's my opinion. Is like you can't have someone just sounds like him. You know.
Well, let me ask your opinion. I mean, and we can differ, agree to disagree. I mean,
Yeah.
that's what
course,
this
of
is
course.
this is the greatest country in the world to do this. So
course.
what did you feel about the Rome replacement with Sublime?
Same thing. I thought that it was not Bradley, but the kid was good. When I first heard him, I want to say when he first joined Sublime, he was like 19. And I was like, this guy's like a kid and he's that good. And he's a great guitar player. He's a great singer. And I felt like I trusted the guys, that they really liked him. And I actually saw them play probably a couple years after they formed. And it was at the AV Fair. They played at the AV Fair. And I was like, this guy's great. And I loved it. I know inside stories about Sublime with Rome from our buddy Lyle, but so I'm not going to get into that. But
So when you
I
first,
originally was in love with it. I was like, I love every bit of it. I argued with friends about it. They're never going to be good. I can't stand them. And I look at them as a different band. That band. I don't look at them as the same band because once like Bud left, it wasn't the same band. Everybody, because there's only 3 members in that band. But
right.
like if Mike Shinoda were to leave, it'd be like, okay, well, this isn't Linkin Park anymore, right? But it was Sublime with Rome. It's fine. I loved Rome. I thought he was great. But he wasn't Bradley, but he was good and I liked it. So I embraced it, and they wrote new songs. They came out and I loved it a lot. I still listen to a lot of the new songs. I loved it. Thought it was really good.
So you didn't think when he first came out with them, there was any similarity to Bradley's voice?
A little bit, but not really. He sings differently than Bradley. It wasn't like a sound alike. Is what I'm saying. Like you didn't listen to him and go like, that's Bradley. I don't want anyone to sound just like him.
I kind of felt like
when
he sounded a little bit like him in like the first album, and then the next album came out. It's like, okay, he's kind of writing his own shit now. Like he's bringing his own flair to it. I think that's what kind of. I think there was a hint of Bradley's voice. Like, oh man, we can hear what I got. Kind of like old school again.
Yeah,
but I think this is an interesting move from Linkin Park. Because most bands that do kind of get like that similar voice that want to venture out into like writing more albums instead of just playing the same shit over and over again, kind of stumble upon that problem where it's like, well, we can't sound like our old self because this person doesn't sound like anything that we can rewrite again.
Right.
But like, but that goes to your, what you saying about Journey and the new singer, it makes complete sense because they're not writing any new material. They're just playing the old shit. So that makes complete sense.
Yeah. Yeah. So if you're coming out with, if you're just going to go play shows, then
of the old stuff.
sound alike is fine. Yeah. Of the old stuff. That's fine. And you're not going to write any new material, then go have a sound alike. But when you want to go on a different, like a new level of, or not a new level, but just like a new generation of music with a different singer, then you don't want someone that's just going to sound exactly like that singer. I mean, a lot of bands have done it, I mean, Alice in Chains did it, but I don't know if you heard their album they came out with after, with the new singer. A lot of it, he wasn't even really on. They did a lot of it with Jerry Cantrell singing. And for me, it just didn't, the songs were good, which kind of brings me to another point. Like band just has to have good songs to make it. Like the singer is a big part of the band. It's a huge part. There's a lot of fucking good singers out there. You got to have good songs, right? And that's what Linkin Park has always had, is great songs. And Jerry Cantrell sang on most of the songs on the Alice in Chains album, and I'm a huge fan of Alice in Chains. And Blaine Staley was one of my all-time favorite singers. And when they came out with the new album, I was like, they can't replace that voice, And the new singer was a great singer, but he wasn't featured on a lot of the songs. And then when he sings live, he doesn't sound like Layne Staley. He sounds like himself, and the songs still sound pretty good live. So I really liked what they did. They kind of went a different direction, but it wasn't as good as old Alice in Chains. So there's an example of it not being as good, because it wasn't Layne Staley. You really couldn't replace that voice. And they tried, and I was hoping it would be good, but it really wasn't. So it just didn't work out. And with Linkin Park, the one song that they do have out, I love it. Like I can't get it out of my head. And she is amazing on that song. So I'm hoping that the rest of the songs are good, because all in all, songs have to be good. That's what makes a band.
Yeah.
It's not just your singer. You have to have good songs. Every band that has made it big has good songs. and that's it. You can have good singers, but you can have shitty songs and you're not going to make it. So I really hope the songs are good. If they're not going to do anything with the new album. But judging by the first song, I mean, I'm loving it. So
I just don't want them to have a tarnish. I hope this doesn't tarnish their legacy. That's my biggest issue with it, because I guess being super judgy on situations like this, it's like if you have a singer that I mean, if I see like improvements, like, oh man, this singer fucking rips it, like he serves justice to Chester, or he or she, then I have no problem with it. But I haven't given her, I haven't heard the new song yet. I haven't, because I saw all these, clips of her singing their old stuff, and I'm like, no, not yet. No, it's like too soon. Like, I know we've been waiting so many years for this, but it's too soon. It's way too soon.
It's been 7 years.
I know.
What makes, I mean, okay, in your mind, what makes Chester, the replacement of Chester, different than any other band that's done it? Because there's been a lot of bands that have done it with singers dead or alive that have just replaced their singer and kept going with new music and stuff like that. What makes Chester different?
I think because I went through so much in high school during that album, and it was just like that whole album, like Crawling. That song, it Numb. Like, oh my gosh, you can put on Numb and just think about any depressing thing you want, and you're going to cry, and look at your dog the different way, whatever the case may be. It just hit all different.
In the end, yeah.
Yeah, in the end, that's in the end. I'm sorry, in the end. It just hit so many different receptors when I was a young kid. So to see them like now they want to go and try to do this, it's just, it sucks. Because he, the way that he left this earth and stuff like that. Just feel that I just hope that whatever Emily Armstrong. Yeah.
Emily Armstrong.
Emily Armstrong as the new singer just does a good job. And I hope the album rips, because I just don't want them to be like, well, this was fun. Like, let's do one tour and that's it. Like, no one wants to see us. I don't want that, because they're just such an iconic band. And most people that just, they break up or they go on a hiatus, they come back, they're like, let's go on tour and let's do this again. And they come out with an album and it fucking sucks dicks. And it's like, why'd you do it? You should have just stopped, please. Yeah. Like, don't Ric Flair yourself, please. We don't need woos until we don't need 65-year-old woos. We're good.
Yes, we're good. Well, you got to listen to the new song, because it's really, it sounds like old Linkin Park, and it's just really good. And I feel the same way about like Linkin Park, because they were, when I first heard Linkin Park, I was like, what the hell is this? I gotta get this. And I was a punk rock kid, and I'm like, this is not punk rock, but I love it. I want this. And it got me more into like other music, other, I guess you want to call it new metal. I don't like labeling shit, but got me into more of that stuff, but they're just such an amazing band. Like, every single big song they had was like absolute banger. But I felt that way about other bands. Like, Sublime was big for me when I was in high school. I remember my buddy gave me a tape, and we put on 40 Ounces of Freedom, and I was like blown away by, what is this? I had never heard like anything like it. Like, I'd heard a little bit of ska, like I heard Operation Ivy and stuff like that, but like I'd never heard anybody do like ska, and reggae to me was like Bob Marley. I didn't really know what else there was, and to put it together and with punk and all that, I was like, blew my fucking mind, changed my whole outlook on music in general. I said, I'm going to start playing shit like this. This is what I want to do. Like, this is, and then to have it just taken away so quickly after only a few albums and only a few songs, it was like, and then to a few years later replace Bradley. I was excited. I was like, you're never going to replace him, but like, now we get to get more music from these guys, and I was a fan of it, so that was what it was for me. So I was a fan of all of that. I just think that if you lose a member of the band, the band needs to keep going. The guys in the band, it's not their fault. And a band is a band. It's not just one person. So they wanted to keep going. And I agree with it. If you want to keep playing music, and if it doesn't work, then stop. But go out and try. Go out and keep playing those songs. Keep doing it. Sublime Was Home did it for like, 15, 16 years. And it was great. I got to see him live a few times, it was great. And I hope Linkin Park can keep going for another 15, 16 years with the singer, because if that happens, then that means they're putting out good songs, and people are coming to their shows and people care. and I want that to keep going for the rest of the guys in the band.
Right.
You know,
Right.
they deserve that. They all deserve that.
Yeah, I agree, man. I guess I'm just gonna have to put my pride aside and just because I'm about to
Give it
give
a
two
chance.
examples that kind of like, I guess, gives you kind of a background of how I feel about the way I do. So I do hope the album kicks ass. I really do, just based off of
Right.
my love for Linkin Park, and I just hope she does a good job.
Right.
But giving me a little legitimacy, Ronnie
Right.
James Dio made Black Sabbath better.
I agree.
And
I agree. But why? They had better songs.
oh, I
I think
mean,
they had better songs.
but even them playing the old stuff, like he was just fucking Dio is a
Dio-
fucking
Dio's
savage.
amazing. I agree. I love Ozzy to death, but honestly, I can only think of like 2 Black Sabbath songs. But Dio, when Dio came in oh man, I agree. I'll agree. I agree.
I mean, let's just listen to this epic voice. Fucking charge me. I have a house. Just take it. It's worth it. This is Dio.
Sing me a song, you're a singer.
Oh my God.
Do me a wrong, you're a bringer of evil.
People, that's just a bass guitar and fucking drums and a singer. And I know you are
The
bobbing
voice,
your
yeah.
head. I hope you have not gone to
Oh,
a car
yeah.
crash because it's hitting so hard right now in your eardrums. Like this is,
I agree.
I mean, when I heard this and I ended up like covering this song with one of the bands I played in right out of high school, I was like, I can't believe this. I'm like, this is Black Sabbath. They're like, yeah, this is with Ronnie James Dio. And I was just like, what? This is way better. Like, this is fucking
Yeah.
amazing. So
I'll agree with you on that one. I'll totally agree with you on that one.
this was a tough one, like to even bring up because most people are like, Ozzy's the greatest of all time. Like, I'll tell you right now, Ozzy is not the greatest of all time. He's not the
No.
greatest singer of all time. He is probably not even the top 10 of my favorite singers of rock or even in history. He's not
No,
even close.
He didn't make my list. He's got a great voice, but I'll bring it back. Like, I've never been a fan of Ozzy. I've never been a fan at all. I like a couple of the songs. I remember the first time that my buddy taught me how to play Crazy Train. I was like, this song's fucking cool, but like that's it really. There's like 2 songs I like, but I do think Ozzy has an epic voice. It's amazing, but he's not one of the best singers ever. Like, he's overrated in my book. I think he's way overrated.
Can we agree or disagree that Ozzy is more famous for his antics than more of his
Oh yeah.
musical skills?
Oh yeah, he's way more famous for his antics. Like he's, yeah.
Thank you. You've heard it here, people.
I agree.
Thank us later. You're welcome.
I 100% agree. Yeah, I mean, I've never been a big fan. Never.
So when I say, like, you know, I'm being harsh on Emily, this is one of the biggest things. I'm like, this was an improvement, people. You know, this
Yeah.
was like one of the biggest improvements that I saw in a band. And then bringing it to like the early 2000s, I was a big like metalcore fan. Killswitch Engage was one of my favorite groups of all time. And when Jesse
Yes.
Lynch quit and he left the group, they picked up Beastly, Howard Jones.
Howard Jones.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, dude, I am getting goosebumps just
Yes.
even saying his name out loud and not in my head.
That guy has like 5 different voices singing, dude. Like, amazing, dude. Amazing singer.
This guy you can see him in a metal show. You can picture him in a metal show. You can see him
Yeah.
singing choir. You can picture him singing choir. That's his range. It's all over the place.
Yes.
Fucking great.
Yes. Amazing singer. Yes. Agreed. 100%.
So when that
100%.
guy, you know, replaced Jesse, I'm like, improvement. This is how things are going. This is working well, you know?
Yes. Yes.
So forgive me, everybody, if I'm being harsh on these replacement singers. People are doing it right, and you can succeed from it. So, but Richard makes a
Yeah.
great point. You have to write. I mean, when Killswitch came out with the End of Heartache, that was the first album with Howard Jones, and that is
Yes.
getting something's touching my zipper from inside my pants.
Fits in a tent.
It's such a great album. Like, you have to have the
is.
right songs to coincide with the voice. And I think, you know, with Heaven and Hell, Black Sabbath, and in the End of Heartache with Killswitch, it was just 2 big albums that can kind of like give you prime examples of what bands can do with successful singers or like replacement singers.
Right. And that album again had great songs on it, you know, and I mean it had a great, amazing singer and then great songs, and it was just. And I don't even really like metal that much, but that's one of the albums that I'll put on and be like, hell yeah, because when it first came out, I started listening to it like crazy. And I just wanted. I was hanging out at that time with, you know, guys that were into metal, and I was like into punk, and I was trying to be in a band with these guys. So I'm trying to listen to this music that they're showing me, and I'm starting to love it. I'm just like, fuck yeah, let's do this, because we're trying to do like a hardcore metal / hardcore punk band, and I don't know anything about metal. So I'm listening to this, and when I heard that, I was like, hell yeah! And like Howard singing, and then when I heard Howard left the band, I was like, why? Because he's such a great singer, but you're gonna play it. Yes. Jeez.
Oh, Jesus. This may be the first time that I got to touch somebody from the other side of this phone, dude. I got you. And the crazy thing is this song was on the Resident Evil soundtrack.
Yeah.
Which was one of the best movies, like the first like Resident Evil movie. Oh my goodness gracious, was that good? That was such a great movie.
Yeah. That game scared the shit out of me when I played the very first one. Again, going back to video games, because that's what I did in my youth. Music and video games.
The awkward camera angles where you're walking, like running down the hallway and stuff. Like, what's popping out? Like, this is bullshit. Like, why do they ever write something like this? Like, this is scary as shit.
Yeah, it was scary as shit. I used to jump when I played the game. Like, oh shit.
Yeah, it's still, you could probably still do it now, like with the headphones and everything. Oh yeah, dude, we'd be done. Like with our old age, we're having heart attacks, baby.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we're having seizures.
Oh man, gosh, we've got to see 8-bit turn into like life-changing event video games. You know, like
yes.
I've played games right now where I'm like so engulfed in it where I'm like, I can't believe this is someone wrote this and then they made it into a video game. It's just incredible. Like I've been playing Red Dead Redemption for like almost a year right now, just trying to do all the miscellaneous thing. Dude, sometimes you just don't want to do anything and you just want to wander and look at shit that they put in this game. It's like, wow.
Oh yeah. There's all these Easter eggs and shit everywhere in this game. And I'm like, there's some that I had to like look on YouTube because I heard about them and I'm like, I want to find like these things. Like how did I not see this? So I've ridden by here a million times, and just around this rock and this tree on this bridge, there's this like mural that's carved of like aliens. And I'm like, how did I miss this? This wasn't here before.
Or there's a ghost train. There's like a ghost train at a certain time. It's like, what the, like, why would someone put that there?
Yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. I've done the same thing. I love that game.
I mean, I really love that game. Now from like 8-bit and the pixels that we were like, this is fucking great. Like, look at Super Mario. This is such an awesome game. And like we're beating Bowser in 8 stages. Yeah. Now games are taking hundreds of hours out of kids' days because of all these little trinkets that you have to find to seemingly get a platinum. To finish the entire game, it's a platinum. They call it a platinum, where you have to get all these trophies to achieve the ultimate like 100%. And I'm like, I think I am like 30% away, 35% away from Hogwarts, and this game is amazing, dude. So like we just live in such a great era of like all these different things changing, and we're like, we'll jump back and forth to music, this and that. But this is like what's so cool about this podcast, that we can just talk about one subject and say, hey, remember this, and then we just go on a tangent. You know, I love this, dude, and I love talking to you about this stuff, dude, because you know we grew up in the same area and we kind of had like the same, you know, childhood, you know?
Yeah, we kind of did. Growing up in Lake LA, it's kind of really all you had to do was play video games or go play out in the desert or, you know, ride your bikes around. But, you know, and then when we got older, it's like we got into music and everybody wanted to be in bands. And so like we both kind of came up the same way. I know that like I got influenced by other guys older than me, and then you guys were influenced by me doing it, and then it just kept going down. So yeah, we have kind of lived similar lives, and I love that. That's why I thought this was such a great idea. I think that it's going to be really good. I think we're going to have a lot of shit to talk about.
Yeah, this has been great so far. I mean, I don't know, guys. Are you guys in? You have like 5 more minutes to talk about like a little top 10, maybe 5 top 10 list, real quick to end this podcast. What do you think, bud?
I think we can do that real quick.
All right, man. Why don't you kick it off first? Because I think you have more of a complete list than I do. Because this was actually a difficult list for me to to comprehend.
So, yeah, so I had to kick people off and add people and kick people off. So what I did was I went with people that I love their voice, I love their performances, and some I just love their voice, and I think that that's why when I hear their voice, I'm like, wow, that's amazing. There's nothing like it. And then some are just because of the way they perform and just how good they are. But I started off at number 10 with Axl Rose because Guns N' Roses was a band that I was like, Appetite for Destruction came out, and like I said, I was into punk rock, I was into rap, stuff like that. And then I heard Appetite for Destruction, one of the first, metal albums that I listened to, and it was like punk and metal and everything all mixed together. And it blew my mind, and I couldn't believe a guy could sing like that. And I just had to put Axl on the list. That's why he's number 10, because he's not near number 1, but I just love Axl's performing. And now look at him, I'm like, oh, it's so embarrassing to see these guys still doing it.
It's pretty rough
because he's not. He's rough. Like him. And
if you don't take care of yourself, people, like you, especially as a vocalist, you can't be overweight. You can't smoke cigarettes. You can't do anything to damage your voice. So if you're like eating hot peppers all fucking day, you're damaging your vocal cords, people. Like
and it's terrible. I see Vince Neil on Motley Crue, and I love Motley Crue, and he's just terrible now. These guys need to hang it up.
That was a hard concert. I saw them a year or two ago, and they played with Def Leppard, which is they're still kicking ass. Their singer's okay, but he's not as rough as what I saw with Motley Crue.
Yeah. But Axl had to be on the list just because I just think about, early 90s, just listening to Guns N' Roses, and it blew my mind. Number 9 for me was Stevie Nicks, just because her voice is so amazing. I'm not really into Fleetwood Mac, really not into. They have great songs when I hear them. I'm like, hell yeah. But Stevie Nicks, her voice is just, there's nothing like it. Nothing ever will be like it. She's just amazing. So I did add her. And one thing I wanted to say, like, oh, it's got to be in our lifetime, like we were talking about. The Rumors album did come out in 1977, which ages me. That's the year I was born. So that one works.
That's such a great album, man.
It's such a great album. I know.
Those dirty fuckers too.
Mac, but I know they're fucking.
See,
good,
like we said, the 70s they had to do some fucked up shit to write the greatest albums of all time.
They did, yeah. So where am I at? Number 7.
Yeah.
Alice in Chains, Lane Staley. I mean, it was funny. I was talking to my girlfriend about it. We were having lunch yesterday, and I was talking to her about like this what we're doing. I said, oh yeah, I have a top 10 list, and I was telling her a couple of the people that are on it and why I put them there. And then literally right after I said it, Rooster came on. Like, it was so crazy. Rooster came on, and I was like, this is it. This is what I was just telling you about, right? And not only did that happen with Lane Staley, who, I mean, his voice, it was so powerful. And I had my grunge era when I was in high school, and when I heard him sing for the first time, I was like, holy. So I heard Man in the Box. I was like, this guy's voice is crazy. And one thing is, I had a girlfriend when I was in high school, and she was into like Metallica and stuff, which I've never been too into Metallica. But Alice in Chains was supposed to open up for Metallica. Well, Lane died right before that show. So disappointing. I almost saw Alice in Chains. I had tickets, never got to see him. But I think he's on my list 100%. And then I talked about this one earlier, Elton John, legend in my book, always been a legend in my book. All his songs. I mean, I hear stories my mom told me of when she was at the show he played in Dodger Stadium, where he wore a sequin Dodgers uniform. So he's always from before I was born till all through the 80s through now. If I hear Elton John come on, I crank that shit. The next would be Chris Cornell, another replacement singer, if you want to think about that way, Audio Slave. But when you solo his vocals, sometimes he was just so damn good. I mean, every aspect, whether it was Audio Slave, whether it was Soundgarden, anything he did, whether it was Temple of the Dog, if you've heard that album, it's basically all Chris Cornell on that album, and it's so good. He was amazing. Next would be Chester Bennington, of course. We've already talked enough about Chester, but he's definitely in my top 5. And then this happened also at lunch with my girlfriend. I was talking about Scott Weiland from Stone Temple Pilots, and Stone Temple Pilots have always been one of my favorite bands. And I just think his performing and just the way he was, and I hear his voice. He's got one of the best rock voices ever to do it. And he's way up on my list because he's probably one of my favorite rock vocalists of all time. But Sex Type Thing came on right after. And I was like, it just happened again. And it was probably not the next song, but the song after that is when it came on. And then I was just saying, this is crazy how these people I'm talking about, their songs are coming on right now in this place where we're eating lunch.
Dude, you're all
so
manifesting it.
Yeah. And so now that brings me to my top 2. And number 1 is going to be super, like, I don't know if everybody's top number 1, but I'll say number 2, which might be surprising, is Prince.
Wow.
Prince is probably one of, so Purple Rain came out when I was a kid, and I remember just listening to that over and over again. I told my dad, I'm going to be rich someday. I'm going to be a rich baseball player, and I'm going to buy you a little red Corvette. And we ended up one year bought my dad a model of a red Corvette. Says, look, we bought you a red Corvette, Dad. But that Purple Rain album when I was a kid just blew my mind, and I listened to it over and over. And I think I had a record, like an actual vinyl record of it. That's how old I am. But Prince has always been just like an artist that's blown my mind with how great he was. He's definitely, if not, he's got to be number 2, but because my number 1 is the best performer ever to do it in any genre, any band, any whatever. Freddie fucking Mercury. Freddie Mercury is the best to ever do it.
Wow, dude. What a
little
list.
surprising, right?
Yeah.
A little surprising.
Yeah. Dang. All right. Well, your list is I didn't come up with the top 10. The most I got to was 7, because this was actually pretty difficult for me, because I didn't want to. This is like my personal, and I think the most. I think these artists made a staple in music. So besides them being like some of the greatest singers of all time, I think they made their mark in music too, to kind of put them in this top 7 for me as well. Besides them being my favorite singers, like they just what they've done for music, I hope you guys can understand why this list is the way it is for me personally. At number 7, I have, controversial due to recent documentaries, Michael Jackson, the Thriller of all. Michael Jackson, what he's done with music, his voice, all the greatest songs that he's ever come out with. He has one of the most iconic voices ever in music history. I had to put Michael Jackson up there. You can put on a Michael Jackson Essentials, and each song is gonna bang. Guarantee it. Like I said, I won't go too far into it. My uncle actually introduced me to Michael Jackson. He gave me a mixtape of like, it must have been like an A and B side, just all mixed with different songs, which he was able to do back in like the early 80s or like in the 90s and shit like that. I was like, oh, this is really cool, dude. I really appreciate this. You opened my eyes up like big time to something that I was raised on, Hispanic music, rap from my brother. I started listening to like, this next couple artists that I'm going to talk about later. And then like Green Day and shit like that. So when I heard Michael Jackson, I'm like, oh my God. Like,
yeah, so good.
It's amazing. So he's at my number 7. This is going to blow you away, because when it comes down to like status wise, this is like flopped all over the place. You're gonna be like, dude, this guy is out of his fucking mind. At number 6, Mariah Carey. Oh, you cannot. It is hard to even compare or put any other woman or any other vocalist in this world that can even hit her range like Mariah Carey. And before she went all ghetto and shit, she had some of the greatest music that us kids as junior hires would have a hard time dancing with the girls because our little thingies would get really excited. It's like her music. So,
Casey and JoJo.
yeah, dude, it's like the Casey and JoJo
Yeah.
of like our junior high, you know?
Yeah.
It's like if when you went to those dances and you were on one side of the basketball court and the girls were on the other and Mariah Carey came on, nobody was dancing because you knew like it was like that was just too much intimacy. So Mariah Carey vocals just on a different level. I've never seen her like perform like live, but I mean, you've seen many videos through her like 20, 30 years of singing. She is not just a Christmas vocalist. She has some of the greatest albums in the 90s that ever been written in pop and R&B. Please go listen to it. But
I've never been a fan, but I do agree her voice is, and she was really big for a while. I've never really liked her that much, but yeah, I do agree. She was huge in the 90s.
yeah, the voice range is nuts. And
It is, yeah.
when you do the comparison, which is really hard to even do, this woman does it and blows her out of the way. At number 5, Miss Whitney Houston.
Whitney Houston.
Oh, dude. Oh, I want to dance with somebody. Oh, just, oh my gosh, please. You know, the
Great
Bodyguard.
songs, like I said,
the
great
Bodyguard.
songs.
It's like
Yeah.
it was a different era, people. Like vocals meant a lot. Like now, when you hear this shit now, like that some women are singing in some of these pop songs, you would never hear that shit coming out of Mariah Carey, Whitney Houston, a Janis Joplin, a fucking anybody. You wouldn't hear anything. Like, this is not what music is about. We don't talk about this shit. It's about like happiness, depression, relationships, drugs, and all that stuff. That's it. You know?
Yeah, really.
So she was just, it was like Donna Summers, like and like the pitch was just in a higher level. It's like if you were a Donna Summers disco fan, you got the best R&B pop singer, like, you know, transformation in Whitney Houston. It's like, and then you see her in The Bodyguard when she's acting with Kevin Costner. Love it. Amazing movie too.
Yeah, she did really good in that movie. I've seen that movie. Yeah, she was good. Yeah, she was huge at her time, and her voice was amazing.
And such a tragic way to go out too. You know, it's like,
Yeah.
it really is. And I hope you guys, if you guys don't know about it, please just go look it up. We can always get into that later in another podcast, but let's finish this up. At number 4 is my favorite artist of all time, but not my favorite singer of all time, because, you know, I got to be harsh on this. This is going to be a category I have to be harsh on. If you want me to talk about my favorite drummers, my favorite bassists, my favorite clothing line, I'm going to be rough on it. I'm going to take this shit seriously. At number 4, the greatest artist of all time when it comes down to musicianship, Prince.
There you go.
Prince and the Revolution. That album can be played over and over and over and over again. Purple Rain is actually going to be played at my funeral. It's actually set in stone already, you know, and I want it to be on a gloomy day where we can actually make like it look like Purple Rain while I'm getting buried. Like, I want everybody to be crying, dude. I want this shit to be sad. It's going to be, I thought about this stuff.
Dude, I cried. If that song came on at your funeral, bro, I would be bawling.
See,
Purple Rain,
I told you.
Purple
See,
Rain.
he's like, he put Purple Rain on that fucking piece of shit as I'm being put down on the ground.
You motherfucker.
Right?
Exactly.
It's like that was only like 8 songs on that Prince and Revolution that came on that went with the movie. Just 8 songs, and it's the greatest fucking album, I feel, almost of all time. I feel personally. So Prince is the greatest for me. I mean, he's my favorite artist of all time. Vocalist, number 4. Number 3, Steve Perry, baby. Ooh, we've talked about
You're
it.
a big Journey fan.
Yes, I'm a big Journey fan.
I was not aware.
Yes, big Journey fan. And the replacement Arnell, I was really happy that, you know, just kind of like justifying everything that you said, bud. You know, they're not playing any new shit. They're playing the old stuff exactly the way I want to hear them. Not some sloppy drunk from karaoke in the AV bar. Well, I want someone that can sing just like it. And you know what? I'm happy with that. I'm good. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
I didn't see Steve Perry, but if you see him now, see Steve Perry right now, you don't want to see Steve Perry right now. You want to see Arnold.
No.
Like you don't
Yeah.
want nothing to do with
That's
Steve
true.
Perry.
Yeah, we saw them last year. They actually played at the BYU Stadium on 4th of July last year. And we were there, dude. Arnold's amazing, dude. He was so good. But you hear him singing, he sounds just like Steve Perry. He's a sound alike, but he's a great performer. And I was super stoked watching it. I really was excited about it. And he did so good. He's really good.
I mean,
So
as a Journey fan or anybody that's seen Journey live, you're getting exactly what you paid for. You're not getting anything
Yeah.
else. Like if you're gonna go see Journey, you're gonna see Journey. That's it. Nothing else. You know. So just
Journey
know
has
that.
such great songs, dude.
Gosh.
I mean, there's the songs that, I mean, they're just, seeing them live. I heard some songs. I was like, I don't even remember that was Journey. Holy shit, that's a great song. But yeah, they were such a great band. But I'll Steve Perry. Okay, I got you on that one. I
Okay.
agree.
Side note, people, useless information. The guitar player for Journey was actually the guitar player for Santana that actually played at Woodstock.
Didn't know. Oh, I did know that. Yes, I remember seeing that. Yes.
Yeah,
I
useless
remember hearing that.
information,
That's
baby.
cool. Useless information. I think we got a name.
Yeah, dude, I think we got it. So to round up my top two, I have possibly one of the greatest singers that fell on your list too. Number two, Freddie Mercury.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you not? Undeniably one of the greatest vocalists of all time that wrote some of the greatest, most iconic music of all time too.
Yeah.
That if you win a championship in any type of fucking sports, league you're in, you're playing "We Are the Champions." Nothing
Exactly.
else. Nothing
Exactly.
else.
Yeah, what's crazy about Freddie is he like sang all his own backup vocals and stuff because he's like, no one else can do it, so I'm gonna do it. And he was just like, this is how the song's gonna be. And his writing was like perfection in his mind, and his performances had to be perfect. He was just so good. He was just there's no one better. There's no one that's ever done it better.
Yeah.
In my opinion, obviously, like you agree with me on that.
Yeah,
I mean, it's just so amazing.
yeah, it's really hard to think that there's a number one, after this,
Right. I'm super like curious to who this is.
So the greatest, in my personal opinion, the greatest rock singer of all time, is Robert Plant. What Led Zeppelin and that voice did for music was the most iconic of all. I think they laid the ground what music should be. To be quite honest, like they are the pinnacle of like what music should sound like, and everything else has just been like, fuck, I wish I sounded like them.
I think a lot of the singers that I mentioned they got a lot of influence from Robert Plant.
Mm-hmm.
I will agree with that. Yeah, like I mean, especially like people like you hear Lane Staley sing, you hear Chris Cornell sing when they were hitting the same kind of notes, trying to hit the same kind of notes that Robert Plant was hitting, but couldn't do it. So because he was a legendary singer, and for some reason he did not make my list, and I feel like I should have put him on there.
It's kind of
I
crazy.
don't know
Huh?
why
Like,
he didn't
I
pop into
mean,
my head. Like I really think that I don't know who I would kick off though. That's what I'm saying. Like I really agree with you. He wouldn't be number one on my list, of course, or probably not top 5, but he should be on my list. I agree. Robert Plant I mean, yeah.
but this is
Zeppelin
this
is
is also like
crazy
going with
good,
like
dude.
what I feel they did for the music industry. Like obviously like the
Yeah,
Mariah Careys
yeah.
and Whitney Houston stuff, they're not gonna, if I say like to another rock star or rock person, they're gonna say, dude, Dio's better than fucking Mariah Carey. I'm like, I understand that in that genre, but when it comes down to like vocal wise, it's like it was such a cool list to hear both sides, man, because I had to think about this as well. I'm like, this is nuts. It's hard for me to even think that somebody can beat Michael Jackson. Like even to throw Michael
Yeah.
Jackson on them, like who's beating that when it comes down to what all of Michael Jackson has done in the music industry? Who else could come after that? It's like the whole thing
yeah.
about like Metallica fans, like I hate Metallica. I can't stand them. But like, but dude, they're obviously doing fucking something right. I'm like, ugh, okay. So what's my argument now? Like I have nothing. I just don't like their music, but they're the most iconic, metal group that's done it for the last 40 years.
Yeah, it's kind of like that thing with Nickelback too. It's like everybody hates Nickelback, but like they've sold 50 million albums, more than a lot of people.
They're winning.
And they're winning somehow. Like that's fine as long as you're fucking winning, dude. Like I'm not a fan of Metallica. I can listen to the Black Album all day long, and I love their stuff before that. But anything after that, I really couldn't tell you. I don't like them at all. I've never really liked them. But they're winning somehow, and that's all that matters. Like, who cares? I respect it. I respect if you're selling millions of albums, you're selling out arenas, you're doing something right.
You're doing
so keep
something.
doing it.
Just like the Fast and the Furious franchise. I haven't seen one
Yeah.
after the second one, but they're doing something right because they're making
yeah.
millions and billions of dollars on them.
Exactly. They're doing something that I'm not doing. So
Right.
I need to do something better because I would love to make millions of dollars doing something that I love, like playing music or something like that, So they're doing something right. And you can't, I'll talk shit about it all day long. Like, Metallica's horrible. I can't stand them, but they are doing something right. So there's millions of people that like them. So it is what it is. It is what it is. Just keep doing it. Keep doing it till you can't do it. That's what I say.
Yes, sir.
Do it till you can't.
Well, man, dude, this was a fun podcast. This was like a lot more fun. And I knew once we started, dude, it was just going to start flowing. Once the hiccups got away, dude, this was a great time. I hope everybody out there in podcast land enjoyed this podcast. And I hope the next time when we don't know exactly when these are going to fall, because I think we're going to decide, weekly, like what days are going to be the most interesting, on the following week. So
Right.
I think that's what makes this a little bit exciting as well, because there could be days where I'm like, dude, this Tuesday, it's pretty crazy what happened here. And then you're like, well, man, Thursday, fucking this war was nuts, and then they were playing like flutes all over the place. It's like, what,
Yeah. We'll just start texting each other about like, hey, this happened. We got to put this on the podcast. And the next thing you know, we're like jumping on real quick to do it. Yeah. That's
and then you go like, did you know Reba McEntire like wrote a whole album based off of like Teletubbies? It's like, what the fuck are you talking? It's like,
what? Dude, I got so much useless knowledge like that. It's crazy. So yeah, I think that's the good name for it.
This is great.
Perfect, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you guys so much for listening to this podcast. If you did enjoy it, please just leave a comment on either my podcast, the Conference Call Podcast, or Richard's of the Mind of Dick. Please subscribe to each one, follow, because this is going to be thrown on each one of these platforms, so you'll get double the love each and every week.
Dude, thank you guys.
Thank you guys so much, and until next time, keep positive and stay classy. Peace, y'all.
Peace.